Welcome to Russzar. If you're a Russian American, there's a good chance that if your family came here in the 1940s to 1950s window, that Countess Alexandra Tolstoy had more than something to do with that. Alexandra Tolstoy, Alexandra Lьвовna Толстая, was the youngest daughter of Count Leo Tolstoy, also the author Leo Tolstoy, who wrote War and Peace, Anna Karenina, and a number of other well-known literary works. Alexandra Tolstoy really wanted to dedicate herself to her father's work. She even decided not to marry because of that, and she was her father's secretary all the way up till 1910 when he passed away. After that, she decided to continue on with humanitarian work, and in 1914, she was a nurse at the front during World War I. Russia was involved in World War I on the side of the Allied powers, and so she attended to a number of people there. She actually ended up encountering some pretty interesting individuals who later on ended up in very high places amidst all the revolutionary activities, but that's for another discussion. So Alexandra Tolstoy encountered the Russian Revolution as a nurse in 1917. Again, the Soviet government distrusted her. They arrested her a number of times, and they even put her in prison for a while. After a while, they decided to let her leave the country on a temporary basis, something the Soviets hardly ever did. She was the daughter of a very well-known writer, so they felt maybe there was some PR value in that. And so they let her go to Japan, which was supposed to be for half a year, but Alexandra Tolstoy decided to stay there for a year and a half. And she did not want to return to the USSR. She ended up going to the United States, where she became a citizen. Right around this time, World War II is starting, and Alexandra Tolstoy is concerned about her Russian people, and she wants to find a way of being helpful. She is friends with this one lady, Tatyana Alexeyevna Shalfus, who was a nurse with her at the front during World War I. They were good friends, and they decided, let's start a foundation to help all of these people, these Russian people who are displaced, who are in difficult situations, and thus the Tolstoy Foundation was born. Now, these ladies didn't have lots of money or anything like that. Alexandra Tolstoy would sometimes get maybe just a little bit of help from somebody who was sympathetic to her, but much of the time, or pretty much almost all of the time, she had to make a living somehow, and she decided to do that by starting a farm together with Tatyana Shalfus. And we're going to see that farm today, Tolstoy Farm. And many of our ancestors, grandparents, parents, great-grandparents, whoever, have been there, because that was the first place where many of them had some kind of contact with the broader Russian American community at the time. Alexandra Lьвовna and Tatyana Shalfus really worked very hard to make the Tolstoy Farm not just a place where they carried out farming activities, of course, which was necessary for sustenance for a while, but it was also a place for the community to thrive, and it even became a place where the elderly were taken care of after a while. Kato knows a lot about it because he was there throughout his childhood. He lived almost next door, and he's going to walk us through the entire place and show us what it's like today, and remembering, of course, what it was like in the past when he was there. Very interesting. So many people came through the Tolstoy Foundation, and here's just my piece of evidence for that. Here you see I have a document here, which many of you probably have. This is a refugee document, and you can see here the Tolstoy Foundation is listed here at the very top, and this is my father's family, okay, my dad and his parents that came from Trieste, Italy as displaced people after World War II. So, I don't know how many of you still have these. It would be nice if you did. You can share them with us. But either way, the Tolstoy Foundation was an amazing part of our journey here to the United States as Russian Americans, and Kato is going to take it from here.
So welcome to Tolstoy Farm, otherwise also known as the Tolstoy Foundation Center. Back in the 40s, the daughter of Lev Tolstoy, Alexandra Tolstaya, she acquired this land through various of communication and talks. And the Reed Farm was purchased for $1. I don't know the exact story, but it comes around something like that. So this was the main house, what we see here. This house actually is almost as old as United States of America. This house is over, I believe it's over 200 years old. That's how far the Reed farm goes back in time. In the 1940s, Дочка, the daughter of Lev Tolstoy, Alexandra Lьвовna, she got this, and the idea was to help the immigrants, the refugees, the Russian refugees trying to escape the battlegrounds of Europe after World War II. And she was helping out all the individuals who had really no place, no family. They might have been single. They might have lost a husband. They might have lost a wife. They might have lost their kids. And so this was the idea, to help them start a new life in the United States of America. My father came through this way as well. He came here in the 50s from Caracas, Venezuela, where he escaped too. So we're talking about maybe 200 acres. I don't know the official how much land was here. But anyway, let me take you through here and show what was here before. Main house. The main house was always called the main house, right? Main office, kitchen on the bottom, on the ground floor, and the balcony area. This was where everybody used to eat, all the workers, all the staff members, and people who lived here. You can see some additions here that were built eventually, right? And if you swoop around here, you see this house used to be a barn converted into the library, the biblioteca, which would house all the numerous of books. They had literally thousands upon thousands of books here. And before the internet, this was the main place to go read a book. Where would you get? There was no Barnes & Noble, no Amazon. This was predominantly the place where people would read Russian books. Naturally, Tolstoy, Gogol, Chekhov. I'll stop here for a second. This building housed the egg ladies, meaning there was a Ksenia Nikolaevna Susanina. She used to run the egg business here. They have a small little machine. It was very cool. The old ladies would, put the eggs into this machine, and it would see which are good eggs, which are bad eggs, small eggs, extra large eggs, double yolk eggs. Everything was figured out here. Then brought over here, and this was the refrigerator room, the cooler room, where they stored all the eggs. All these eggs were not just for, it was a business. It was the Tolstoy eggs. nice little marketing idea, if you would think back then. But they basically would supply all the eggs in the county. People, everybody. Even as a kid, when I used to be here, people, all the locals would come here, not to the supermarkets. They would get the eggs here for a fraction of the cost of what they would actually pay in other stores. This was a small little picnic table area here, and a small little 7-Up machine, not Coca-Cola, not Pepsi-Cola, a 7-Up machine here. You put a dime in the machine, take the glass bottle, finish it, put it in a wood crate. I used to do that myself. I'm almost certain that the egg machine is still left in this small little shack right here. I'm pretty sure, because I saw it there like 30 years ago. This was Alexandra Lьвовna's house. This is where she lived. Naturally, you can't see it's in good condition, but now the priest lives in this building. Now, he's been living here for like 40, 50 years. That's just Grigori, right? So, but this was where Alexandra Lьвовна used to live. She did not drive in a car, but she had a garage that she would put, she had a car at her disposal, but she never drove it. Furthermore, this was OPH1, OPH1, Old People's House or Old People's Home. And this is where the refugees would have a small little room to themselves and really live off their lives.
How did it get to be known as Old People's Homes? if they're refugees, they had different ages, obviously. So
It didn't matter. At some point, yeah, you're right. It probably developed into old people's homes, but that was really OPH1, as far as I remember. This was a garage, naturally turned into a house. I forgot the last name of the lady. And this, what we're looking in right here, this was the farm. This is where they had the Black Angus cattle that Sergei Kuzmich Frolov lived to be over 100 years old. He was the main farmer. He made sure that there would be enough food for the immigrants or refugees, whatever, and then some. So dairy food, meaning milk, cheeses, but I don't think they really got into that much into cheese. But milk they definitely had. And meat. Naturally, that was gone. They got rid of it, I think, in 1980, 81. They closed down the farm operation because there already new guidances by the state of New York. So they couldn't really run a agricultural business anymore. This was the swimming pool area right over here. You could kind of see the outline. Though an interesting point I want to make. When my father was here as a teenager, right, late teens, he used to not swim not just in this swimming pool. Rockland Lake is not even a mile away. So what they used to do is go to Rockland Lake and swim as much as you want. It was a beach. It was a beach, and everybody who used to live here used to go to the lake instead of swimming in the swimming pool. But people still would do it. And I actually swam here. This is where I learned how to swim, actually, right here in this swimming pool. Well, currently what we see naturally, the farm is long gone. These houses were put up, I think, in the late 90s, early 2000 area. And the idea was to rent out or lease out, however it works out, with the Russians who want to live here, because there was no need anymore for one or studio apartment or one bedroom apartment, right? What they had here. So they started up this idea, but as you can see, it's still preoccupied. That is not the church bells. But we're going to get to the church in a second here. This area right here, where you see these bungalows, so-called bungalows, or you want to call them cottages, this was the camp area. This is where all the children in the summers used to come to this camp here. And we're talking about the 50s and 60s. This was still active up to, I think, maybe 1965, 1966, somewhere there, up until the new camps started evolving. Nor and Adur started, right? So this was Tolstoy camp. And there are photos available online in newspapers where they show them raising two flags up, the Russian and American flags. It seems small, but this was enough for the kids to enjoy their outings for the summer. And my father was also in this camp as a kid, student, a teenager. Right there, we're passing by the church in the area, and this was the garden area. Right here, this was all a garden. This is where the Sergei Kuzmich would run grow their tomatoes. And trust me, the tomatoes were great. He used to really know как обрабатывать, how to deal with making sure that the tomatoes grow perfectly, the cucumbers will grow perfectly, the cabbages were huge, and this is before genetic messing around. In this area right here, right in this area, this is where there was a house, and this is where Sergei Kuzmich stored his farm equipment. And on the bottom, there was a professor. I forgot what her name. Volkonskaya. Volkonskaya lived right over here on the first floor as well. The building's long gone. Профессор Екатерина Volkonskaya, I don't remember her имя, отчество, but she was one of the main people behind Norwich Russian language schools. She was there, the main person there, and I think she might have actually was involved in starting that Russian school studies at Norwich. So as we go this way, oh yeah, there was no pavement here before. There was no This pavement was a dirt road for the longest time. And actually, if you look here, you can see this is also a garage. This was also a garage at one point. Why so many garages? Well, at that time they needed garages, I guess. I don't know. This was a garage. You come to think of it, wintertime they needed garages to hide their equipment, I guess. This was converted, the garage here, this area right here was converted into a dormitory slash school auditorium in the late 80s. This became a project that Rjevsky was involved with teaching Russian language for a summer semester, right? So you're talking in 2-3 months' time, the students would come out here, and I'm still friends with one of them to this day, Larry Lyons, who's now living in Africa as we speak. This area right here was the chicken coop area of Tolstoy. Hundreds of chicken. And my father's first job here, picking the chicken eggs, which would then be brought to the egg ladies, and the egg ladies would figure out the quality of the eggs. Are they good or are they bad? But you're talking about hundreds, I don't know, maybe 1,000 chickens that would lay eggs here. The smell was interesting. And the furthermore we would go south of here, oh, sorry, actually north. It looks like it's south. That's where the pig farm was. That's where they had all the pigs, the hogs. And the old boy in there was over there in that area too. And the land used to stretch so far down. If we're talking about 200 acres of land, you're talking about plenty of place to develop. But they never did that. Instead, in the 60s, 70s, they needed to make more money, and they started selling out the lands. Though, if we look to that side right over there, that's the Tolstoy Foundation nursing home. So people who definitely were by themselves, but they needed someone to look after, the so-called assisted living maybe today. But people were really, really in bad shape. It was a place for them to so there will be someone to look after them, right? So that's the nursing home. And to this day, it's still functioning as a nursing home. There might be 1 or 2, maybe 5, I don't know, Russian clients. Otherwise, everyone else is now Americans. So this is, what we're looking at is in the years of its existence from the 40s, it did its service to help the Russians in need who were coming to America. Yes, Tolstoy also was involved with other countries as well, not just Russia or Slavic nations. They started helping out the Thai people, right? So you've got people here from Tibet even, and this is the Tara Institute, which is actually a Tibetan institute that Tolstoy is definitely involved with, even to this day as we speak. There's archives here that we all, as the descendants of Russians, can put our efforts into help these organizations such as Tolstoy to survive and to help out with the archives and so on. We got to put some organization to this. We can't forget it. The church has been run by several priests. I don't know all the stories behind them, but for the longest time, отец Викторин Лабах, он был настоятель. He was the main priest here for many, many years until he got sick. He had diabetes and he had problems with his health, at which point отец Григорий Котляров came into town and took over his position when he passed away, when отец Викторин. Before we hit the church, this was called the Nichols House. I don't know the history. I don't know why was it called the Nichols House, but for the longest time it was called the Nichols House. And Knyagиня Vera Konstantinovna Romanova, Princess Vera Konstantinovna Romanova, this was her area right here. This was her apartment right here on the corner right here. And there in the distance, that's the OPH2, Old People's Home number 2. And in the basement, that used to be the auditorium for Tolstoy Farm for the longest time. So all the yolki, детские yolki, everything used to happen here on the bottom floor. Russian school for kids, that was here in the bottom. Today, it's actually rented out to the Indian Orthodox Church. And so they have their congregation here. A minimal amount, I think there's like 15, 20 people that come here, but at least it's somewhat still connected to the Orthodox Church. Nothing goes on here in the Old People's Home. I don't think it's condemned. It's just, right now, it's just remains empty as far as I know. And there again is the Tolstoy nursing home, right over there. Now, we're located in Valley Cottage, New York. And Valley Cottage, New York was a small little community of Russians that actually somehow were associated, like my father, right? He felt like it would be safer to be next to Tolstoy Farm. And that's why my father moved out of Hamilton Heights in 1968 and bought his first house here. At that time, I think the price of a brand new house, 4-bedroom, right, and so on, 2-car garage at that time was for $35,000. Today, the price of these houses go for minimum $500,000, right? There was a house over here that belonged to the Kaganis, and unfortunately they all passed away. As I understand, they sold that piece of property just under $500,000. So the prices, of course, escalated, and just looking at this bench here, look how old that bench is. I'm pretty sure interesting people sat on that bench some time ago. Mazirovskaya used to live here. I'm trying to remember all these names, unfortunately I can't right now, but Madame Mazirovskaya. So here you go. There were a whole bunch of trees lined up here before. This was not so noticeable before, not so open, but it is open right now, and so you've got the church. And of course, there's a lot of interesting people have come and gone through this church. So you're talking about from the 40s. I think the church was built in the 50s, 52 or 55. Valley Cottage is located in Rockland County. And so Tolstoy Farm was this one section in Rockland County with Russian emigres. Nyack was another section of Russian emigres, descendants who took over Nyack. And Novodivivo was a third location, so the cemetery. And we're all in proximity next to each other. So still, it was an interesting community of Russian descendants living in this entire area. The style of this church is also, you could see that it stands out. It stands to like a Суздаль, Нижний Новгородская style. Extremely rare in America, actually. So there you have it, right? It was built in 1955. The cornerstone there, you can see it. There are documentaries filmed here. I don't know all the names of the documentaries, but there was interesting documentaries filmed in the 70s, in the 80s with Tatiana Schaufus, Alexandra Lьвовна, Timur Bagration. They all were at that time when the Cold War somewhat kind of relaxed a little bit. There was interest in Russia or Russians. The bells here, actually, that's one of the original bells right here. This is actually the original bell here, the original bell tower. This is all actually original, going back to the 40s. This was brought in during the proslavlение, the baptism of Russia in 1988. These bells were donated. As you can see right here, actually, right? So the Крещение Руси, 1988. And that's when the bells were, I believe they were donated. I might be wrong. I used to ring church bells, трезвонец. Interesting collection of names. Unfortunately, it's not continued anymore. But these names are the people of all who used to donate their work, their time, their money to Tolstoy Foundation. And the last person I see here, which is interesting, right? This person, you can see it's brand kind of newer, is Vladimir Tagunov. And he died in 1992. So there you have it. This is the Russian diaspora, Русское зарубежье, what we're all talking about, the idea of preserving the history of our ancestors, per se, our roots. A lot of the Russian descendants born in America, their parents or grandparents, good chance that they came through here, through Tolstoy Foundation Center, otherwise known as the Tolstoy Farm as well.